Hi, I'm Skylar Calhoun, based out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I work for Rimkus Consulting Group. I am a professional engineer. In 2018, I was selected as a Young Member Scholarship recipient to attend the Structures Congress in Fort Worth, Texas. Since then, I've helped with the committee of the Reform of Structural Engineering Education 2, CROSSE 2, to help restructure structural engineering education. Let's spend a moment looking at who else is in the room from the entry poll. So from the looks at it, it looks like the majority of people are 56% members, 22% active in SEI committees, chapters, and/or divisions, 22% leading a SEI committee, chapter, and/or division. And it looks like the majority of the people within this meeting is practitioners at 69%, 10% academia, and 3% students. And it says how familiar you are with the SEI organization structure. 49% is somewhat, and 24% is very. Good. So it looks from the poll that some 55% is not familiar with the SEI restructuring, and that's why you're here. You're going to learn more about what is the restructuring and what it means to you. I am joined by Stephanie Slocum, who is currently serving on the SEI Board of Governors and is the volunteer chair of the Reorganization Communication Process Team, which is the task committee responsible for putting on this event. Stephanie is running our slide deck and will be moderating the chat throughout this event, especially as we get into questions you will have about the reorganization. So how this session will work is we'll first share a presentation about the SEI restructuring so you are up to date about what is happening. Then we'll open it up for questions to our panelists. Now I'll introduce you to Don Scott, the current SEI President, who is here today, and will share a pre-recorded overview of the reorganization so you understand why SEI reorganization and what it means to you.
The purpose of this presentation is to give you an overview of why we at SEI are considering reorganizing and how it might affect you. First, you may be wondering, why is SEI reorganizing? To understand this, let me give you an overview of how SEI got to where we are in terms of our current activities. In 2008, the SEI vision statement was established with 4 SEI priorities. You can see these 4 priorities up on the screen. In 2013, the SE Case for Change identified topics and strategic issues for action. By 2019, that Case for Change was updated and initiatives. The result was the 11 different initiatives you see on the left of the screen. I'm not going to read them all, but you can see that we've gone from 4 priorities to 11 initiatives. Those were refined into the CASE NCSEA SEI Joint Vision for the Future of Structural Engineering. Over time, the initiatives have taken on a life of their own and grown into many different activities. We also know that as time moves forward, we collectively are trying to do more with less. There are limited resources available to support all of the things that we want to do. For example, there are about 30 standing groups that report directly to the board. even though that's not the most efficient way to operate. When all of these groups report to the board directly, there is more time and resources expended because all board level activities require some staff support. This also creates a condition where the board has an overly large role in day-to-day operations and is focused on executing tasks instead of acting as a strategic guiding hand to the institute activities that uniquely contribute to the betterment of the profession. Additional SEI activities include SEI programs and events such as the annual joint leadership meetings with CASE and NCSEA, the SEI Standards Series, Structures Congress, and the ET. There are also awards, Division XComs, publications, workshops, and the 26 codes and standards SEI is responsible for developing. Some of these activities overlap with my previous slides, but some don't, and they all require time, resources, and some of the other challenges we are experiencing leading to the need for a reorganization include communication silos created by 5 different divisions. Paths to leadership for rising stars take 4 to 5 times longer in some divisions as compared to others. Ineffective resource allocation because SEI priorities aren't discussed in many Board of Governors meetings, given the burden of so many board-level activities. Volunteer and staff burnout due to the lack of resources, and excess bureaucracy caused by an organizational structure that no longer serves SEI. The reorganization was studied for 2 years before the Board of Governors voted to move forward with it during their October 2022 meeting. The Board of Governors took many moving parts into account, received focused input, and carefully studied the options before choosing to move forward with this reorganization. Now that you understand why we are reorganizing, let's talk about the reorganization goals and structure. The reorganization goals are to increase collaboration and knowledge sharing throughout the Institute by moving from current 5-division structure to a 2-community structure. Reorganize the SEI Board of Governors from a representative structure to a strategic board structure for long-term operational efficiency. Become a more nimble, responsive organization to meet industry and member needs. Accelerates. Focus the efforts and resources of SEI to establish and meet the Institute priorities for the advancement of the profession, and to increase leadership opportunities and pathways to leadership for rising stars. Here's a graphical representation of the organization structure. The single part of this reorganization that will affect you most is the transition from the current 5 divisions to 2 communities. The Codes and Standards Activities Division and the Technical Activities Division will be integrated together into the technical community. The Business and Practice or Professional Activities Division, the Global Activities Division, and the Local Activities Division will be integrated into the professional community. If you're wondering where events like the ETS Conference and Structures Congress are going, they will be managed by SEI operations as well as any other activities requiring contracts. The Board of Governors will be streamlined so it can act more strategically. We currently have 15 governors, 14 of which are voting and 1 who is non-voting. The most effective size for the board in the reorganization is still being studied, but we expect to land at or around 10 governors, 9 voting, and 1 non. Finally, instead of the 30-ish current board level focus initiatives, there will be 3 to 5 board level focus initiatives that will report directly to the board. You might be wondering what will happen to my community, task group, or current board level initiative. Generally, committees and current activities will be moved into the communities, assuming there is grassroots and volunteer support for them. There are exceptions to this. For example, the Technical Activities Division was already in the midst of a reorganization before the SEI reorganization was started. And thus, those prior recommendations will generally be honored. You might be wondering, is this final? Where can I get more details? That's in part why we are here today. The reorganization concept is moving forward and will begin to be implemented starting in October of 2023. Board of Governors members and others from outside the board are leading 5 reorganization transition teams to develop transition plans with more. The transition plans are not final yet. Institute leaders, especially Division XCon members, are being asked for their input. We're here today to answer any questions you might have about the reorganization and to take your feedback into account in these transition plans. Today I have with me past President Victor Van Santen, who is the Professional Community Reorganization Transition Team Leader, and James Wacker, who is the lead on the Technical Community Transition Team.
Thank you for that introduction to the SEI Reorganization, Don. Now please share questions you have about the reorganization in the chat for Don, Victor, and James. As you're putting the questions in, I'd like to start with the question I have. Tell us more about leadership pathways for rising stars and how that works.
Thanks, Skylar. I appreciate that. First of all, I'd like to apologize. Sounds like we had a lot of technical difficulties with the recording, but that's when you record something and then you try to play it again over a Zoom meeting. It doesn't always work that well. So sorry about that. But back to your question, Skylar, on the leadership pathways for rising stars. As mentioned in the video, sometimes the organizational structure that we had required let's say a rising star younger member it took them 4 to 5 times longer to be able to reach an XCOM lead or a Board of Governors position than other pathways that were within the SEI structure. So we're trying to streamline those and make them consistent across the organization. Currently, of course, we have a younger member board position that's held by Elena Sutley currently, and that's voted on by the Board of Governors. We're asking each one of the communities as they form their executive committees that they will also have younger members on those younger members committees. So we want to make sure that we're giving them more opportunities that will, in a flatter structure, that will allow younger members and newer members to the organization, those that have time to serve and to have the enthusiasm to serve, that will give them opportunities that they can grow within the organization.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. Victor, would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, just noting that in our reorganization, there will be a lot of opportunities for leadership training and development as we're continuing to streamline those processes going forward and be easier entry points for people to get plugged into SEI than maybe in the past.
Gotcha. Thank you, Victor. And James, would you like to add anything to that as well?
Yes, I would add that our technical community task team is also focused on how we can increase engagement opportunities for younger members. This includes realigning the committee groupings to better reflect emerging technologies and new trends in the structural engineering field. We are hopeful that this will engage more young engineers, both on the technical and on the code and standards side. We've also given strong consideration for including a younger engineer as a voting member of the new XCOM committee, as Don mentioned.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Stephanie, is there any questions in the chat that we will need to address?
Yes, so we have a number of questions related to going back to the video and wanting to see the different things. This will be, I can answer that one. This will be, the recording will be posted, so you'll have a chance to go back and look at that if you need to. And thank you to those who are posting some of the links in the chat. The other one question I see was asking, will the reorganization result in higher efficiency for the SEI committees? And I think that speaks directly to kind of collaboration and how that reorganization is going to work. Don, do you want to take that one in terms of, you know, the higher efficiency question?
Certainly, as we mentioned in the video, currently with the 5-division structure, we are kind of siloed and people are not collaborating together. And so we're trying to be more collaborative in our efforts, and with the two communities, which match up well. And we've already seen a lot in as the reorganization teams are working on those organizational structures, we've already seen a lot of collaboration ideas come out of those in the reorganization team that should be carried over to the community. So it really is trying to break down the silos, be able to collaborate more, and to be a lot more efficient in the work that we do. It's one of those things we think of, everybody thinks that we have unlimited volunteers. We don't have unlimited volunteers. It's really a lot of the same individuals that we see name and time again on on different committees. And so as we are working together in a more collaborative effort, we hope to utilize those talents that they bring to those individuals bring to each one of the committees and be able to share it in a broader aspect that we have across the organization.
Awesome.
Yeah, if I could add to that too, on the professional community side, the divisions that are represented will be transitioning into the professional community. I had noted that there were several committees that had very similar visions about them, things that they were getting after, trying to tackle, for example, membership and engaging different parts of our SEI community locally and around the globe. And by reorganizing, we're able to have more efficient meetings, more efficient committees that are reducing some of the redundancy that we might have had in the previous organization.
Understood. James, would you have any comments?
Yeah, I think by combining in the technical community, especially the CSAD and the TAD, I think we can start learning how to identify needs for CSAD, what kind of things we can work on TAD, and they can kind of work in the same direction instead of independently like the silos Don had mentioned.
Understood. Hey, Stephanie, do you see any more questions?
Yeah, and I think we're going to build on what James just talked about, because there's a couple questions about what happens to a specific committee. So for example, Gus is asking, how does this impact standards committees like ASCE 7, which I know Don is very involved in. And there's other questions about, what specifically happens to my committee. And so that's the question. I think I'm going to summarize several questions for you. How is this going to affect the committees I currently serve on? Don, I'll let you take this first, and then others can chime in as needed.
Certainly. And thanks, Stephanie. And it's a great question. And Gus, I appreciate the question about the standards. Of course, I'll answer that one shortly first. Maybe the standards will be continued to be developed just like they currently are within CSAD. But the things that it does do allows is the CSAD committees, Codes and Standards Activity Division committees, the ones that develop the standards, they will be able to, as James said, they will be able to interact more with a lot of the researchers and individuals that are doing other work on topics that support our standards. And so we can communicate with them and develop plans to help build the standards and help add to the standards in that process. Now, going on to the general question of what happens to my committee, we are not currently all the committees are just being relocated into the different communities that we know. There are, as Victor said, there's a lot of overlap, and so the XComs might be looking at those and might be merging committees together if appropriate. But right now, the plan is that all the communities will have a home within the communities and or at the focus initiative level that was mentioned above.
Anyone else wanted to add to that?
From the professional community, would just note that the committees that exist within those divisions are all being looked at, and any changes that would be proposed, it would be discussed with each of the executive committees and those committee members going forward. Nothing has been set in stone exactly, but each of the committees currently has a home in the reorganization, and how they are affected going forward is still being rolled out.
Yeah, and I might add, there's a few committees that might be realigned and put in other areas of SEI under operations and such, but all the committees are being looked at and trying to be realigned within the combined structure and positioned with appropriate CSAD committees where it makes sense. So that was our approach.
Understood. Stephanie, do you see some more questions?
Yes, and what I'm also going to do is put up, because some of these questions are alluding to the new organizational structure map. And so you will see what just came up on your screen was that organizational structure map from the video, in case you have questions or trying to understand visually what this looks like. So Craig asks, is this slowing current progress and activities? And I assume that means like the reorganization overall in terms of progress and activities. And I think that leads a little bit to going back to that question of why we are reorganizing and how that might kind of accelerate and create more opportunities. So again, Don, I'm going to direct this one to you again in terms of what are your thoughts on this in terms of how, creating opportunities, and do you think this reorganization is slowing current progress or activities?
Let me repeat what I think that I'm being asked. So to make it clear, and so maybe that's not, maybe I'm not quite understanding the question correctly. Do we think that the current reorganizational effort is slowing the committee progress? Is that the question that I'm being asked? That's what I think I'm hearing.
That is my interpretation of the question. Craig, if you want to elaborate, go ahead and put that into the chat, and I will find it and share it back. But that is precisely the question, Don.
The only aspect that I would say that might be slowing anything down with the reorganizational effort is that the Technical Activities Division had started reorganizing before the reorganization process really started on for SEI in general. And so with that, I know that the Technical Activities Division has not completed all of their reorganizational efforts, kind of waiting to see where this went. That would be the only aspect that I could see of anything slowing down. Other than that, the committees are told to move forward. The organization structure isn't changing until October 1. And so then, like I said, all the committees should be moving forward with their current tasks at hand. And like I said, I can't see any other aspect that it might be. And I know that TAD is meeting to, now that they understand the reorganization a little bit more, they'll start meeting again to finalize their reorganization.
I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next question because I think I suspect there's little to add to what Don just said. Josephine is asking about one of the SEI events that is near and dear to my own heart around Structures Congress. And she is asking, what is the change going to mean for Structures Congress? And decisions on technical content and how that all is working right now. Who wants to take that question?
Well, I'll take it. Sorry, Stephanie, since Laura Champion and I, the managing director, talked about this yesterday. Okay. So nothing really will change on Structures Congress, the organizational structure. We're saying it's moving to events. That is pretty much how it's handled now, where the SEI staff organize it and get it ready, and then send it over to the different, they'll stand up a planning committee. They'll stand up a technical committee. There's a national technical committee that meets and decides the content. Those won't change on it. Only if you want to say the events are going into SEI operations, really nothing's going to change with that other than what would naturally change with Structures Congress or ETS conference or any of the other events as we progress. There's always some changes to those events, but it really is functioning in the same manner that it has in the past. There still will be those standing committee or organizing committees for Structures Congress and the technical committee that selects the content. Those will all remain the same.
James, did you have anything to add to that related to the technical aspect?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Stephanie, you see any more questions?
I do. Okay, so Dong is asking, do we have an evaluation process to tell if committee members are really contributing to tasks more efficiently? And then he's also asking, how can we tell the reorganization works better? And so, I mean, that's the direct question. How can we tell the reorganization works better? And I think this goes back to talking through what are the goals for the reorganization and why we're reorganizing. Don, I'm going to direct this one to you again.
Stephanie, you're pointing at me all the time now on this.
I am.
That's great. Like I said, that's fine. Sorry, there was two questions. What was the first question? I understand the second question.
Okay. The first one was, and I think this actually applies now, like reorganization aside, the first question was, do we have an evaluation process to tell if committee members are contributing to the tasks most efficiently?
That's a great question, Stephanie, and we are looking at that as part of the organization, or really even currently setting up some SEI policies to try to ascertain whether committees are functioning properly and whether they are meeting their intended goals that they have and under what timelines that they're doing it. So Don, no, that hasn't been done, and we're working on a method really even now, not even outside of the reorganization process, to trying to determine that to get to be more efficient. We would like to, it's been discussed, and I won't say that this has been determined yet. It hasn't been determined yet, so I can make that statement. Whether all of our committees go to stand-up committees where they would be started up, they would have a very defined task and a very defined time limit, and then they would be sunsetted at the end of those time limits. That's been discussed. That hasn't been determined yet, but those type of discussions are going on to try to improve efficiency. And then the second question about how do we determine whether the reorganization effort will have been successful. Of course, that is one thing that we're planning on doing or looking at doing. We're kind of stealing from the iStruct-E, where they have a large advisory council that meets twice a year to look at what's going on in iStruct-E and advises the board on what they're doing. And I would think that we're looking to do a similar thing, to develop an advisory council as part of this reorganization that would then meet a couple of times a year and advise the board on things that need to be done. And I think they would also look at whether we're being efficient at it, whether the reorganization works. So we would use them as a council to determine whether they felt like reorganization has been successful or not.
Okay, I'm going to slide right into the next question as well here. And Tripp is asking about the leadership structure of the communities, and specifically what happens with the XCOMs. Don, I'm just going to call on you again.
I'll start, but then I'll let Victor and James add to it. But the XCOMs will be formed, and we're currently looking at each one of the communities will have a single XCOM. Okay, and then they are going to some of the XCOMs will have to be merged, whether those are actually the same membership that's currently on the XCOMs or not, will have to be merged into a single XCOM for those communities. They will then, this partly comes where that advisory council is being thought of. Anybody that maybe is currently serving on an XCOM, but is close to their term being expired, they might be asked to go to the advisory council to give direction to the board in that way on these topics. Those type of things are being considered. None of that's been determined, but the technical community and the professional community, and I'm going to let Victor and James say, but we're looking at sizes around 7 to 9 people or 7 to 8 people in those XCOMs. So that is a lot of where we currently have many more XCOM members in the divisions now than that. So we will we're going to slim it down, but then we'll try to transition into those new XCOMs. So Victor, I'll maybe ask you first, and then I'll go to James.
Yeah, for our professional community, we looked at the 3 divisions that were making up them, and they're currently on the order of 19 different board members or executive committee members, rather, that's made up those 3 divisions. And we're looking to make that somewhere about 7 executive committee members for the professional community. The transition of that still to be determined. But as Don said, some people will be rolling off, and we'll be looking to have a good cross-section of people on that executive committee. And that's kind of where we're at right now at this point. James?
Thanks, Victor. For the technical community, if you combine CSAT and TAD, I think there's around 16 members combined, and we're targeting a lower number, maybe around 9. And in order to fill out that 9 voting member committee, we're starting a dialogue with TAD XCOM where we can look at people's background and best align the management of this new technical community so that we have the right people in place at this critical transitional time.
Awesome. Hey, Stephanie, what is the next question?
Thanks for asking. Okay, so this question is related to the new organizational structure and how we are thinking about bridging the gap between SEI at national and local levels. The person direct messaged me, so I'm not going to say who it is, but their comment was that they felt that a lot of the local SEI members don't know about the structure and operations at the national level. And the national committees may not know what's happening at the local level. And so the question, I think, Victor, I'm going to send this one over to you because of what's happening with the professional community and who's going in that. Can you talk a little bit about that integration of local and national, the local and national groups within the professional community?
Yeah, as we're looking at some of the existing committees and really what are the main efforts of what the divisions had been doing. One of them, of course, is the local activities division that would spend time trying to provide guidance and leadership for local chapters and student, graduate student chapters around the country. And you combine that with the global activities division that's also looking at international membership and reaching out to international chapters. The idea there is to try to put that in combination so that we have kind of a new focused committee within the professional community that's engaging the local members primarily through the ASCE sections and branches, and those mainly being the SEI chapters and graduate student chapters around the globe, and trying to provide them with information about SEI, provide them with training and leadership opportunities, provide them with touch points with both the professional community and the technical community so that our members kind of at the grassroots levels are aware of what we're doing. We are doing that from our level to the members, but we don't always know what the members need. We don't always hear from them. So if you are at a local section or branch of ASCE and you don't have an SEI chapter, I'll put a little plug out there to reach out. We can start a chapter in your area very easily. If you are part of an SEI chapter and you haven't been reached out by SEI in a while, reach out to us as well on that, and we can get you more plugged in. But that's our hope, is to help engage members at a local level, to get them more plugged into the organization so they can see where they can participate and where they can learn and grow.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Victor. Don, would you have anything to expand on that, or James?
Go ahead, James. I'll let you handle it on that one, and I'll maybe finish up if you have any more comments there, James.
Okay, I might just add, from the technical community standpoint, I don't know that the local and national aspects apply so much. However, I believe that in the end, when we get to the other side and the reorganization takes place, we're going to try to foster more collaboration between the new communities. So we will start working with the professional community in ways that we haven't in the past.
Thanks, James. And just a final comment, I guess I would make, and more from a personal perspective or personal interest or understanding, is I would say that I came up through CSAD, been very active in CSAD for numerous years, many years. Did I ever really understand the SEI organizational structure? No, not until I got onto the board and fully grasped the organizational structure. So individuals that are asked the question, whoever asked the question about the local activities, not quite understanding what's going on at national, and national not understanding what's going on at local, I 100% agree. We are trying to do that. Like I said, I came up and I would tell you that I did not understand the organizational structure of SEI until I did get to the board, and then it took me at least a year after being on the board before I finally started to grasp it. So it is a concept to understand and understand those divisions, those silos that were created with the divisions, and we're trying to break those down and be more responsive to the local chapters and local organizations so that we can respond to their needs more efficiently and more quickly. And we haven't done that in the past, and I would say that is one of the goals for the reorganization.
Understood. Thanks for that, Don. Hey, Stephanie, what's the next question?
Yeah, and so I'll read off the next question before I do. We have about 10 minutes left for questions, so be sure to get your question into the chat because we're answering them in the order that they're coming in. And so Stan wants to know, will the reorganization affect the SEI Futures Fund in any way? Great question, Stan. Don, do you want to take that one?
Certainly. Again, Laura and I talked about this yesterday. So on this concept, and it still hasn't been determined, but I think we're headed towards that anything that already has a board, which are separate boards. So the Futures Fund has its own board. The Cross US also has its own board, that they would go to probably more into the operations part where they would report through the operations to the board in that direction. We thought about originally proposed that they would go into, well, Cross US would go into the technical community and the Futures Fund would go into the professional community. But I think that after looking at those further in evaluation, again, still, this is part when we start looking at things very closely, part of this reorganization, things change from our initial thoughts. And I think that they will end up in the operations area of SEI. And so that they will be there. They will still function pretty autonomously like they have been now, but they do rely upon the board. They have to get a board approval for their members and those type of things. So I think that's where we're going to end up is in the operations area.
Awesome. Stephanie, what is our next question?
Okay, so Silky is asking, what are some plans that are currently being considered to evaluate different current SEI committees, communities in order to consolidate different SEI committees? And she elaborates by saying that I hope we're not producing more paperwork for current committee chairs to justify their existence. And so I think that speaks directly to the bureaucracy question. I'm going to read, I read the whole thing. I'm going to read back the question again, just for some clarity here. And Don, I think I'm going to direct this one to you again first. What are plans being currently considered to evaluate different current SEI committees and communities as we're looking at moving them into the different communities?
Certainly, thanks, Stephanie. And it's a great question. And I would tell Silky, and I know Silky, that we don't want to create more bureaucracy for the chairs. I understand that. There's two things that we are looking at. One, I think just from our description before, like I said, and Victor probably said it best in the professional community, we have a lot of different committees doing the same functions and the same things or same goals in the BPAD, GAD, LAD, and some the same in CSAT and TAD. We hope to allow those committees to meet together to discuss can they be smaller or can they join together in one committee, or can they take on different expanded roles? I say that so we're hoping for the communities being a lot more collaborative to help the resources from different committees add to your committee that you're currently serving on. Then the other aspect, there is one thing that I will say, is that we are looking to, in the past, a lot of our committees, a lot of the initiatives committee have had staff as secretaries. We are going to eliminate that. We want committee to have a secretary, however the chair wants to deal that on their committee, and not rely upon the staff to take notes and to produce meeting minutes and to do all those things. I know that sounds a little bit contrary, but we want our staff to be a lot more strategic thinking. They understand there's so much going on with ASCE and the other institutes where we can offer more collaboration that they know about. And so we want them to be part of that committee to give input about what they should be looking for, not just taking meeting notes and producing meeting minutes. So I agree. There are a lot of things that fall upon the committee chairs right now that we hope to, by having more collaboration in the communities, will relieve some of those burdens that they currently see.
Awesome, Don. Was there any with Victor or James, would you like to elaborate on that as well?
I don't have anything else to add on that, James. Do you?
I might just add that on the technical community side, when we started talking about combining and realigning things between the two divisions, we looked very carefully at the objective and scope of each group activities. We tried to combine them together in the new strategic groupings that we've come up with. And we're trying to cross collaborate. So not just collaborate within those strategic groupings, but collaborate across groupings and outside of the community as well. So.
Awesome. Stephanie, what is our next question?
Okay, so OLM is asking, how do you think this new organization can have a better impact on Region 10 specifically? Or how are you considering having more of an impact on Region 10? Don, I'm gonna again send that one to you.
Certainly, for those that don't know the vernacular there, Region 10 is our international region of ASCE. So understand that they're from around the world. That is our members from around the world, and we appreciate them and all they contribute to. We're again hoping for better collaboration across and be able to, as they meet, either whether they're in the technical community or in the professional community, I think they will find that there are common interests across all these different regions that we might expand, not only in the US, but across the world, that we might expand topics to. I know that it's interesting. I just got invited just the other day to do a presentation on ASCE 7 in Dubai. So, those type of things, our outreach are going on about our standards and information that we can provide. But, we haven't specifically looked at this on a regional basis. Great question. But we hope that the collaboration that is going to occur in these communities will allow for better collaboration with international partners as well as our members here in the U.S.
Awesome. I appreciate that response, Don. Stephanie, what is our next question?
Hey, Skylar, do you mind if I add to that too?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So just noticing that, we also have a couple of international chapters as well of SEI, which are rather new to our chapter organization. And we're hoping that will continue to grow. We have one in India and one of UAE, and we want to see that those local chapters continue to increase. And that will allow us to engage them better with resources, as I mentioned before, giving them leadership and other training opportunities and plugging them into both the technical and professional communities, and where they may not be aware of our organization and what they can do. But again, unless local individuals reach out, it's hard to make those relationships, those connections. So we're hoping to continue to grow chapters around the globe so that we can engage them and have connection points on a regular basis.
Awesome. James, did you have anything to add to that?
No, not at this time.
Okay, Stephanie, could you redirect us to the next question?
Yeah, and I'm hoping we can fit 2 more in here before we have to start closing here. And so I'm going to give kudos to Mark for asking a question that I'm sure everyone wants to know the answer to, but he's the one who put it in the chat. He asked, is there a plan or need to increase dues? Will the reorganization require a change in the dues? And he put in parentheses, a gulp. And so, yeah, I think that is a question I think everybody wants to know the answer to. Don, again, I'm going to put you on the spot here because I'm sure you and Laura have had those conversations as well.
Actually, this is a conversation that Laura and I have not had.
Oh.
There is no discussion. There is no, we are not anticipating increasing dues that I know of in any way. And it's a great question. As long as I've been on the board, I will just say that I have never been involved in a dues discussion, how much the actual cost is. And so it may be something that Laura and I will have next week as we talk, because I don't know that process. And like I said, there has been no increase, and I don't see any reason why this would cause any increase in our dues.
Got it. Thank you for that.
I understand the dues are really depend on ASCE parent organization. So SEI doesn't have a lot of direct input on what the ASCE national charges. Your SEI membership is free with your ASCE membership. The dues, if you were to become an SEI member only, I believe there's been no, Don said there's been no discussion about changing SEI specific dues.
Awesome. Stephanie, could you go to the next question, please?
Yep, and this one is going to be the last question. I had to scroll through here and see which of the ones we haven't already answered. Mario asks a really good question. He says, thank you for the overview and thinking to the future. How will you prevent each of the 2 communities from becoming siloed as much of SEI has become? What will be done to help the 2 communities interact and collaborate with each other and other institutes and ASCE committees? Don, again, I'm going to send that one to you to take that one first. And Victor and James, feel free to chime in as well.
Well, in 2 ways. If you look at this little, and I want to say back of napkin sketch of the organizational structure, I will just say that we've used this in our organizational structure, but it was truly a few minutes developing this map or this slide. So we hope there will be a prettier one in the final. I'll just say that we have. But when you look at each one of the communities, you will notice there's a little star below them that indicate that there will be a Board of Governors member that will be assigned to attend those XCOM meetings for the technical community and for the professional community. They don't have to be on the XCOMs. They can be just Board of Governors members assigned there, and hopefully bring back, and if they're talking to anybody, to collaborate, as well as Victor and James have both indicated that we want to have meetings of the XCOMs maybe together to talk about what are the issues that are coming up that they can collaborate on. And then third, this advisory council that I keep to mention that we don't show in this organizational structure here. This advisory council would then meet a couple of times a year and discuss the issues that are going on and how, something in the professional community or in the technical community might need to work together to solve an issue. I would just say, from one things that I'm very heavily involved in on a different on national level is resilience, which takes both the technical and the societal side, so which are really described in the technical and the professional community, the societal side of those, and they need to merge together. So those are the type of discussions that this advisory committee will keep us up to date on and keep us moving forward. So I think that will help them collaborate together more than they have in the past.
Awesome. Victor, did you want to expand on this?
Yeah, recognizing that people, are volunteers have a limited time, it would be great if more people learning about this reorganization who might have been previously only involved in one of the divisions are now realizing there's a lot more to SEI that they can participate in, that they'll be engaged, hopefully, in both communities, on both the technical and professional side to round out your professional development going forward. And then secondly, I would also just say, Mario, thanks for the question, and I hope you'll join, the one of these communities and help us keep ourselves accountable.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for who asked questions, and thank you to our panelists for your insight into this reorganization.